Have you ever wondered why some countries impose tariffs or regulations on imported goods? Do these measures truly protect workers, or do they end up raising prices for consumers? Could limiting imports save industries, or might it slow down the economy instead? David Ricardo, a British economist from the early 19th century, developed a theory of comparative advantage. He demonstrated that countries gain by specializing in goods they produce most efficiently. His work built on Adam Smith and remains a cornerstone of modern trade theory. Ricardo argued that even if one country is more efficient at producing everything, both nations benefit if each focuses on what it does relatively best. Efficiency rises, total output increases, and specialization drives global prosperity, creating opportunities that would otherwise remain unavailable. In Ricardo's historical example, England specialized in cloth, while Portugal focused on wine. Both countries gained from trade, illustrating how comparative advantage increases overall consumption and efficiency, even if one country is superior in producing all goods. This example highlighted the theoretical foundation of modern trade systems. Ricardo's idea forms the basis of free trade theory today. It emphasizes efficiency, specialization, and mutual benefit, yet also hints at potential challenges, because not every sector, industry, or worker benefits equally from international trade despite overall economic gains. Even though trade raises total output, challenges arise in specific sectors. Ricardo's model predicts overall gains, but certain industries may shrink, workers may lose jobs, and countries may become overly dependent on imports for essential goods. His model highlighted the gap between theory and real-world outcomes. Industries that are less competitive internationally can shrink or disappear entirely. Ricardo's comparative advantage explains why efficiency favors certain sectors, leaving others vulnerable to competition. These industry losses illustrate how total efficiency gains do not guarantee universal benefits across all sectors. Factories producing goods more cheaply abroad may struggle, despite increases in national output. Local industries can sometimes face closure or downsizing. This shows that while trade is efficient overall, can also cause serious losses for certain industries that need support and adjustment over time. For example, in the 1990s and 2000s, U.S. textile and furniture industries declined sharply as production shifted to countries where labor costs were lower. Entire towns in North Carolina lost factories, showing how national efficiency gains came with concentrated local hardships. Workers in declining industries often face displacement, including unemployment, wage reductions, or the need to retrain. Ricardo's idea of comparative advantage shows how trade can make the economy more efficient. But it also makes workers struggle when they have to shift from one sector to another. For example, in the 2000s, when U.S. manufacturing jobs moved overseas, many workers in the Midwest lost stable factory positions. Communities faced unemployment and declining wages, showing how efficiency gains brought deep local struggles. For another example, in the 1990s, Mexico's small corn farmers were hit hard after NAFTA lowered tariffs on U.S. corn imports. The sudden flood of cheap grain undercut local production, leaving many farmers unable to compete, forcing them to abandon their land or search for other work. Economic dependency occurs when countries rely heavily on imported goods. While specialization increases efficiency, over-reliance on foreign production creates vulnerability. Ricardo's theory predicts efficiency benefits, but it ignores the dangers of depending on imports for essential products. For instance, if a nation depends on imports for essential items such as food, medicine, or energy, then shortages can happen during trade disruptions. Ricardo's model shows that efficiency can create risk, leaving a country vulnerable in critical areas and threatening public health and economic stability. During the 1973 oil crisis, many Western nations that depended heavily on imported oil faced severe shortages when OPEC restricted exports. Gasoline prices skyrocketed, supply lines collapsed, and economies entered recession, showing how reliance on essential imports like energy can become a major vulnerability. To summarize, Ricardo shows that trade increases overall efficiency, but three major downsides can arise: industry losses, worker displacement, and economic dependency. Understanding these challenges is essential to analyze the balance between theory and practical policy solutions in international trade. Governments often use trade barriers to address these downsides. Tariffs, quotas, and regulations are tools used to address specific trade challenges. they still let countries benefit from trade. They also show how Ricardo's theory can be adapted to address challenges for certain industries or workers. Tariffs, or taxes on imports, help protect domestic industries struggling to compete internationally. By making foreign goods more expensive, tariffs give local producers time to adjust and adapt. This prevents immediate closures and gives a buffer for sectors facing international competition. In the early 19th century, British textile factories faced competition from cheaper imported Indian cotton. Tariffs allowed these domestic factories to continue operating and to keep workers employed. This shows how temporary protection helped industries adjust without overturning Ricardo's theory. For another example, in the early 2000s, the U.S. imposed tariffs on imported steel to protect its domestic steel industry from cheaper foreign competition. These measures gave local producers time to stabilize operations and preserve jobs while still keeping trade open overall. While Ricardo's model favors efficiency and specialization, tariffs illustrate a practical way to stabilize industries affected by global competition. They allow countries to maintain certain sectors temporarily without rejecting the core logic of comparative advantage that Ricardo championed. Quotas, which limit the quantity of imported goods, primarily address worker displacement. By restricting imports, domestic workers retain jobs in vulnerable sectors, while the economy gradually reallocates resources toward industries where the country has a comparative advantage. In the 1970s, the European Economic Community imposed quotas on imported Japanese televisions. These restrictions gave European electronics firms time to restructure and maintain employment while adapting to intense international competition. For another example, in the 20th century, the United States limited imports of Japanese textiles to protect domestic workers in mills. These quotas allowed factories to maintain employment while adjusting to international competition, giving workers time to adjust to the challenges of Ricardo's trade model. Ricardo's comparative advantage explains why some sectors shrink, yet quotas help reduce the impact on workers who must leave shrinking industries or learn new jobs. They maintain employment while still allowing trade to proceed, showing a balance between efficiency and social stability. Regulations or standards help reduce economic dependency on foreign goods. Safety, quality, and environmental requirements on import goods ensure that essential products can still be produced domestically. These measures reduce the risks of relying too much on imports, even without using tariffs or quotas. The European Union has required imported food products to meet strict safety and quality standards, such as pesticide limits and hygiene rules. These standards ensure domestic consumers receive safe products while still allowing trade in other goods, reflecting a practical adaptation of Ricardo's specialization model. In the 2010s, some countries introduced strict regulations on imported electronic waste, banning shipments that failed environmental standards. This policy protected local health and the environment while encouraging domestic recycling industries, showing how regulations adapt Ricardo's trade model to modern challenges. Trade based on Ricardo's comparative advantage brings efficiency, but it also has downsides. Industries can shrink or close, workers may lose jobs or need to retrain, and over-reliance on imports creates economic dependency, showing that efficiency gains are not equally shared. Trade barriers like tariffs, quotas, and regulations help address these challenges. They protect industries, support workers, and reduce dependency. They enhance Ricardo's theory by proving policy can preserve the benefits of specialization, while managing its real-world costs. If you found this explanation of Ricardo's ideas and trade barriers helpful, please hit like and subscribe for more videos breaking down economics and real-world policies. Share your thoughts in the comments. How do you see trade shaping today's world?